take advantage of this incredible opportunity to build in crypto for the first time. Our messages are like this very ambitious vision for a new kind of protocol, and Solana is capable of the speed and scale that it is. It opens up a huge new product space. The opportunity cost of it not building on Solana was just too great. So if you're like a developer looking to get into crypto, it's like now's your opportunity. This was like a band-aid that needed to be ripped off. This was very dramatic and like sudden progression, a really strong rallying cry across like all the projects in Solana.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Next Billion podcast. This time we're talking to one of the awesome folks over at Dialect, Chris Osborne, and we're talking about essentially the builders that are building stuff that's onboarding the next billion people into crypto. So thank you so much for joining me today, Chris. How are you going?
It's great to see you, George. Thanks so much for having us on. Big fans of Step Finance. Love the podcast that you're doing and excited to be here.
Oh, look, it's a pleasure. This is our new format. People might be familiar with some of the other stuff that we've done recently at Breakpoint, physically in person, but we're going to be switching to these in-person, one-on-one calls for a little bit, at least over the Christmas period while everyone's sort of all over the place. Hopefully one day we will get back together and absolutely we'll have to meet in person somewhere in the world, probably at a Solana hacker house, I dare say. But yeah, let's get started. I mean, for those sort of not familiar with Dialect, like we can probably get into that, but I'm curious about your crypto story as well. Like we've kind of known each other in chat for a while. I think this is our first time actually talking in person, but you've met a lot of the Step team as well. But how did you come into crypto? Yeah, maybe we can just start there. Like what's your journey been thus far?
Yeah, so short background on myself. My background's actually in physics. I did my PhD in atomic physics at Columbia, like experimental stuff. So this was like precision measurements, quantum computing, atomic clock stuff with like lasers and atoms in like windowless rooms. So I like spent grad school in the dark.
You should be building a nuclear reactor or something.
Yeah, I love physics. Actually, so the why, that's the best next question. I love what my colleagues in physics are doing, and it's like an incredibly inspiring field. But I learned pretty quickly in grad school that what I really like to do is write code and build products and like ship software. So early on in grad school, I realized like beautiful work, really amazing technology, and really impactful on a longer term timescale. But I wanted to move out to the Bay Area, get into tech, start writing software. So I actually got to split the difference and joined and worked for several years at a quantum computing startup called Rigetti Computing. And when I joined, it was like a few dozen people. It was like a supercharged grad student lab. So it still felt very researchy, and I joined on the physics side. But the intent was to grow with the company as the company itself grew. And the company like 5 to 8x in size while I was there. And I like bubbled up the stack from like physics, writing software that's really close to the control experiments, till then like we actually ended up shipping something that we called quantum cloud services, which was like AWS for quantum computing. So like how do researchers and computer scientists and whatnot gain access over the cloud to quantum computers? And we built out this like entire infrastructure stack all the way down to like, how does the user sign up for an account and whatnot? So I led one of the 3 teams that launched Quantum Cloud Services. And the piece that I led, I like to joke that I like built the like vanilla Bay Area software company. Like here's, authentication with Okta, and like here's the user model, and here's how you like use a web dashboard to then ultimately peer very deep into this like super deep complex infrastructure. But it was super fun. Also sort of like further taught me that I just like want to be building software and products. So I was there for about 3 years, and then I left to start this company and actually like started in a completely different field. We were building almost like GitHub for your finances. So it was like this very tech-y approach to like being more active in your finances than say a Vanguard, but like less active and like less impulsive than like a Robinhood or something like that, for those who are familiar with kind of like the fintech and TradFi investing solutions. We did YC, Y Combinator, that like startup incubator, and ended up actually having like a successful Hacker News launch the spring of 2021. But as I'm sure like anyone who's really been in the startup grind before knows, like Paul Graham, who's the YC founder, he has this thing he calls the trough of sorrow, which is like even if you have a successful launch, you like end up in this trough of like great activation and like very little user engagement. So like retention is low. And that's the grind of a successful startup, is to figure out retention after a launch. And we were like summer of 2021, like grinding on trying to improve retention on that product. And then to like maybe answer your question about why crypto. So this gets a little anachronistic, but a friend of mine first told me about Bitcoin back in like 2011, and he's no longer working in crypto, but he was like actually working on Bitcoin in 2011, and the proof of work concept, like blew my mind. It's the top 10 most impactful things that I've ever learned in my life. And saw the launch of Ethereum in the mid 2010s. And then it was late 2020. So like late summer 2020, listened to a podcast with Anatoly, the Solana founder, talking through like how proof of history works. And I think the order book Serum had just been launched on Solana. They were talking through like the unique architecture to it. And again, like as impactful as like proof of work and then like what Ethereum did for general compute, Solana is like very, very, very elegant and even time-based solution for how to like do blockchain at speed and scale was just mind-blowing to me. And so I know I'm like telling kind of an anachronistic story here, but like basically through late 2020 into late 2021, which was like coming back to like when we were building the startup, I had been following Solana and seeing the ecosystem just grow and grow, and like just this Cambrian explosion of cool projects. Like Mango had launched, there was Bonfida. Pretty sure you all, I don't remember exactly when Step launched, but I was definitely aware of you all when I first started working on Dialect. And we were looking at either continue to grind on the existing problem or pivot and go take advantage of this incredible opportunity to build in crypto for the first time, which is something I'd been kicking around the idea of for a couple of years. So the opportunity cost of every extra week not building on Solana was just too great. So full picture there is pivoted the business and just like hit the ground running. This was a couple weeks before the Solana Ignition hackathon was due. And we like scrambled together this like 2-week proof of concept on this messaging problem space, which we'll get into in a bit, on Dialect. And we got very lucky and placed in the Web3 track. That turned into sort of inbound and connections of like, we know we're onto something here and we were just off to the races. So that's the origin story. I don't know if there's any more context you want me to provide there. Otherwise, happy to get into what we're doing with Dialect.
Yeah, amazing. So I guess you guys would say that you grew. I think I remember that Ignition hackathon as well. Would you say that the hackathon was instrumental in you guys starting out and really like building a real product?
Oh yeah, 100%. That was like, and I know I'm like preaching to the choir here, but the number one thing, so for me, like choosing to build in crypto and then like which blockchain do we want to launch on, it's obviously tech is a big part of it. So the fact that Solana is capable of the speed and scale that it is, to me, that was like opens up a huge new product space. But the next thing is like team and community and like what Raj and Anatoly have been doing with the hackathons. And then that turned into the hacker houses that have been going on all throughout 2022. A big part of it for me is the community. And that hackathon is a way for people to kind of like come together and get to know each other. And so we got to know the core Solana team. We got to know a ton of other ecosystem projects. And that was like definitely the catalyst for what has become like a great year for us in crypto. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, I've said to people before that these hackathons, nobody else is doing them. And that's like a key benefit for Solana. Solana is the one that's there. They're actually putting in the work. There's all of these hacker houses all around the world. I can't remember how many are currently on the website. There's probably something like 10 cities that are lined up for the next 6 months or something like that. But
I think
they
that's
really
right.
are, instrumental. And I think you've met some of the Step team as well at previous hacker houses. So like, is that, I guess, Raj and Anatoly and sort of coming across what Solana was doing aside, what do you think of the Solana sort of dev ecosystem or onboarding experience, or how easy was it for you to get started? Because I know like in some other places, or at least some other chains, it's like, oh, there's some docs on a website somewhere that like probably hasn't been updated in a year or two, and people are kind of expected to kind of just do it themselves and figure out where to go. Like, was it a case of were there training reels attached, or you had to see how you go and ask questions along the way and jump in the Discord and that sort of thing? What was your dev experience like, starting in Solana?
Yeah, and actually like dev experience today is very different than it was, say, like a year. Like I started poking around and playing around with things summer of 2021. And the answer, like, I know, like, Solana loves to say, like, chewing glass, like Chase and like Tully and whatnot love to talk about chewing glass. And it's like a rite of passage and a point of pride. I think it's gotten quite a bit better. I do a little less engineering myself these days. But I actually think, like, there's a way in which there's sort of a give and take, or like a finite amount of, like, difficulty at any given time. And one thing I think we underemphasize with, like, something that was great about Solana development and continues to be great in any really, like, frontier developer experience / technology is when you don't have a mature ecosystem and you don't have mature material, educational materials, docs, and all that, you do rely on Discord. And there's nothing better than like hopping in and actually like one of the first people I was asking questions from was Armani from the Anchor team, and now he's doing Backpack. And he just like responds directly to questions and like totally was in these chats, like responding to people in like the core Solana chat. And my attitude is like, yes, like it's weird when you can't Google something. Like every software engineer on the planet, like the skill, what's that first skill you learn? Is like, how do you Google it? Like, how do you Google an answer? And that usually leads to like Stack Overflow, and you like find snippets and you start to piece an understanding together. And it's really weird. Like the biggest cultural shift for me was like the search engine was like first like Discord search. Like literally, like when I was onboarding more engineers to the team at Dialect, I was like, hold up. Like now your entire experience for figuring out how to do things is going to be like this tiny search bar in the corner of Discord. And it's nowhere near as powerful as Google. So it was like you'd spend a few hours. It's like a new muscle you had to exercise to like learn how to search for answers and whatnot. But the plus side, like coming back to what I was saying about like the actual silver lining here, is like incredibly tight-knit community. And I think that's probably true in general of blockchains. Like, I think just because there's relatively less documentation, and I haven't done a ton of development on others, but I would go so far as to say, like, just the culture in the Solana ecosystem, and I think this comes right from the top down with, like, Tolly and Rogers, like, they're in the trenches with folks, and they're, like, really, like, especially Tolly, like, given his technical background and whatnot, I think that's really created this incredibly tight-knit community.
Yeah, well, I guess we also saw some of that at Breakpoint. There's however many days it was. There was a hackathon for 5 days and there was a conference for 3 days. I think most of us were there for most of the week and thousands of people turning up, right? And,
it was incredible.
Yeah, an amazing experience. So, and there's just a ton of people building stuff and that's kind of what you want to see. And I think that's also one of the core metrics that people should be looking at. Like, yes, there's TVL, yes, there's number go up, number go down. But I think like as long as you have more people building stuff, eventually that will be a good metric to track. And also I think like all of these people that are building stuff, they're also all sort of onboarding people themselves like into their own projects and then those projects are then talking to other ones. So it's kind of like, a rising tide raises all boats scenario, which I think is pretty cool. But so that's awesome. A bit about background about how you got started in Solana and sort of where we're at. And I think we certainly are further along than we were like a year or two ago, like quite a lot. So that's really remarkable. Good. It's really good to see. But then of course, after Breakpoint happened, literally the day after, we had FTX blowing up, and then there is the association between FTX and Solana, and now sort of the market's quite depressed and all this sorts of stuff. And it was only really a month ago, although it feels like a year ago, I think, for many of us.
But, feels like ancient history.
Yeah, feels like ancient history. But so where do you think the ecosystem goes from here, particularly the Solana ecosystem? And do you think that this sort of supposed connection to FTX is meaningful? Is it not? And where do you think that the ecosystem should focus from here? And maybe that goes for Dialect yourselves, or maybe that is broader to everyone.
Yeah, I can speak broadly to start at least. I think the short answer here is like there's no way to slice it. Anytime there's a major impact event like this, it's going to be, generally speaking, like short-term bad for everybody involved. And so like the blast radius from FTX is enormous and it's way beyond Solana, but like totally get when people say, obviously, like Solana was one of the closest. That said, I've heard folks saying like things like, this was like a Band-Aid that needed to be ripped off. And if you think about like the progression toward decentralization, this was like a very dramatic and like sudden progression, and that comes with its short-term impact. But I can say, like, for me personally, like we're developer tooling and we know a ton of projects throughout the ecosystem, and we've been taking a temperature check, checking in on projects, seeing how they're doing, and like surprisingly resilient. Like even beyond, so I said, Solana has this incredible community. I had a suspicion that there would be a really strong rallying cry across like all the projects that are building in Solana. It's even exceeded my expectations. And even if you just look at the last week, like incredible launches coming out, like Helios, which is like the monitoring tooling and indexing service on Solana, had a really big launch around a new NFT indexing service. Squads just launched this absolutely mind-bending like wallet experience called Fuse around like using a multi-sig, like multi-party actual wallet Chrome extension. It's like mind-blowing. And like I kept saying like, oh, I'm as confident as ever in Solana. 2023 is going to be incredible. But like December 2022 is already looking amazing. And we just had a couple big launches ourselves in the last couple of weeks. So I think like to sum it up, Prices are down. The problem in general with one of the like double-edged swords in crypto is prices give people a thing to fixate on to like miss like the broader story. And the like my answer would be like in every bull run, what is one of the things we celebrate the most? Like during any major bull run, we look at the absolutely incredible projects that were like grinding along during the last bear market and are in this incredible position now and are capturing a huge amount of the value and progress and success during the next bull run. So during those bull runs, we all like pat those projects on the back and go, how amazing is it? Like, you know, to grind through the bear market, like such an incredible success story. It's like, now's your opportunity. So if you're like a developer looking to get into crypto, there's no better time to, if you have the fundamental conviction, like you have to have that first principles conviction. If you really believe this is going to be a thing, the best time to get in is during one of these events because it's quieter, people are more focused on real building, there's less noise, there's less froth. And obviously like not financial advice, but like, you know, when like most people who have fundamental conviction, this is like, they think of it as like a discount buying opportunity. So I want to focus mostly on the developer point of like, if you're a developer, like now really is an incredible time. Now's the time to build. And we feel that as much as anyone else at Dialect today. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's very easy, as you say, in a bull market to go, oh, everything's fantastic. Great job, guys. Wow, you're up 50x, just like everything else that's up 50x. But really,
right.
it's you know, it's these things that are built in the bear markets that you really do need the builders there, and they're also the projects that perhaps are the ones that maybe will be around in the next bear market as well. So that's great to see. But I think we should switch track a little bit to what you guys are up to at Dialect. Now,
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
guess for those not familiar, what is Dialect and what are you guys trying to do? And we have an integration on Step, but please, what's your take? Eli 5, pretend.
I'll try to give like...
Yeah, I'm a total noob.
Yeah, happy to give it like a very... like just a quick overview of kind of everything we're up to, where we've come. So Dialect is a smart messaging protocol for dApp notifications and wallet-to-wallet chat. And we launched our developer tooling, which was fully open source and an on-chain protocol back in March. And since then, we are live or integrating into over 50 projects across the Solana ecosystem. And I'll get into what we mean by smart messaging and the distinction between notifications and chat, et cetera, in a bit. But the main thing we've been doing for most of 2021 was getting to know amazing projects such as yourselves and talking about what are your messaging and notifications needs. And as you mentioned a moment ago, one of those projects, and actually the very first inbox that we shipped, like web messaging, full inbox experience, was on Step Finance. So it's fun to finally be on this podcast with you. We know Aaron and Dana and a couple other members of the team very well. And actually, to your point about the hacker houses, I think we kicked off that integration with Aaron and Dana back, I think, in the Miami hacker house in, I think that was April. And it was just like, hey, let's like sit down and let's hack it out together. And it was super fun. It was really great. So yeah, shout out again to the hacker houses that Solana's been running.
Yeah, I remember Aaron and Dana messaging me one night and they were like, oh, we've got to do something with these Dialect people. I'm like, what's Dialect? And they're like, oh, it's messages. And we saw this cool demo and we had a great chat. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, that sounds interesting. But yeah, you know, I think it's grown so much since then, and you guys do like way more now as well. So yeah, I mean,
yeah,
actually.
And for us, like the Step Finance integration was one of the first. Like for us, it was that flagship because we do notifications and messaging. I'll get into that in a sec, but that was the first real full messaging web inbox. So that was great. It was super fun to integrate that. But the bigger picture for us is like, we believe messaging in Web3 is going to be a thing, whether we do at Dialect do it or not. Like, if you look at historically, the dominant internet identity to date, if we say like the Web 1 or Web 2 identity, is your email address. And it happens to also be like your identity in a messaging protocol. Wallets are, in my opinion, a way more interesting and way more gigabrained identity primitive. Is enormous design space we can play with, but it happens just not to support messaging out of the box. And like for me personally, like proof of work, all that other stuff, super interesting and like you know, really impactful when I learned it. But from a practical developer's perspective, I think the thing that really nerd sniped me was the Connect wallet experience. That was like unbelievable. And so like a little bit on the problem, when I was like poking around playing with like, you know, this was DeFi summer 2020, but then like starting to really dig into Solana in 2021, it just kind of blew my mind that here's this exciting new experience for like how you engage with the internet, how you prove who you are, and how you self-custody. Back then it was like I would go to a lending protocol and I would put in some collateral, borrow out, and if prices moved too much, I would get liquidated, and there's really no way for that protocol to let me know. So I was like, of course, like no question about it, projects are going to give you an ability to enter an email address, fine. And actually our notifications tooling supports a bunch of Web2 channels like email, Telegram, etc. today. But they're also going to turn on an ability to actually like message you at your wallet address. Like, why connect these other identities, especially because people want to keep that anonymity of crypto and Web3. So we knew this was going to be a thing, but for us, smart messaging is our real like why Web3. For messaging to actually like Web3 messaging to dominate internet messaging in general, it needs to differentiate itself. So like email took over messaging in the world because you could send it instantaneously if you send and receive instantaneously versus like licking an envelope, putting it in your mailbox and like waiting 5 days. Like it was sort of like competing with a like much lower bar. And internet messaging is not just email. It's like Telegram, Discord, WhatsApp, iMessage, WeChat, like all of these things are very sophisticated and really global scale. And so for us, we said, what can Web3 do that's like more interesting and differentiated to like actually attract and excite users? And we have a few things up our sleeves on this front. We're happy to talk about a few of them, time permitting. But the first one is the smart message. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think just quickly on that. So a lot of people, when we talk about messaging or sending a message over a blockchain, they'll go, blockchain's not designed for messaging. Like, what's your take on that? Should blockchains be social networks? Should they convey messages and data? Should I be able to write a PhD thesis and then attach it and append it to a transaction somewhere, and then a bunch of nodes are storing that forever? Is that the way that we should be going, or it like architecturally wise?
I mean, my answer there would be we should just like let the market decide. Architecturally, there's definitely like recommendations, like we have very strong opinions, but whether or not wallets should be able to message, like think about the Saw and Whale event where people were like desperately trying to get in touch with this person who had like incredible. So like from a market need perspective, being able to message to and from wallets is a no-brainer. From an architectural perspective, we actually, as a team at Dialect, we launched our first protocol on Solana. And I would say like this is again sort of like there are better and worse uses of a blockchain like Solana, but let the market decide what is actually going to work. And that's what we did. We launched on Solana. It was super fun developing. And then we learned really quickly from our customers, like that's not a good design. And we also sort of like have our own opinions and rules of thumb about it. And so today we actually no longer store the messages on Solana and are building a roadmap toward where is the right, credibly neutral, censorship resistant, composable, like think of it as like more like a data L1. These are like the Arweaves, the IPFSs of the world. But we're very early there. Like I think like actual performant, available, cost-effective data storage solutions that operate at consumer grade levels are few and far between. So yes, I agree with you. I think with Sense V0, which we still support, but we no longer use actively, we no longer use Solana for messaging. But messaging between wallets is the point. Especially with like a multi-chain future, it makes a lot of sense not to sort of like tie too tightly to a specific like, execution L1 like Solana or Ethereum, etc. The fun thing though, like last note I'd make on that is it's just kind of mind-bending that Solana even remotely made sense. Like Ethereum definitely did not. Like you wouldn't want to store message. And I don't think you should store message on Solana, but it was like the actual transaction cost is like under 1/100th of a penny right now. Twilio to send a text is like a cent or two. And so it's like orders of magnitude cheaper than Twilio. And then if you really want to store like per character, it's also like not unreasonable. The costs are not crazy. But consumers are used to completely free messaging, so it's still not a great solution.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying about the Connect Wallet functionality and making that like the centerpiece, because it really is the centerpiece of Web3. Like me being able to go to 10 different apps, and I don't need 10 different email addresses and passwords and password managers and then a password for the password manager. Like it's just a terrible experience, right? So if I just have one place that I go to, and that's another thing, I try and not answer as many emails as possible these days. I just hate it so much. It's just a horrible experience. Like
right.
there's spam,
Yep.
and then spam filters don't work, and then it's a required, necessity to just exist on many websites, and I have to tell them who I am, and then they can, just push messages to me whenever. I think it's run its course as a protocol.
I think so.
Yeah, and I think the wallet kind of makes sense. You know, it's a thing which you have with you every day. It's a thing which is a single address across multiple apps, so you can tie it into wherever. And yeah, it totally makes sense to be used for messaging. And you mentioned just quickly
And
there
actually,
about, go ahead.
no, you go ahead.
I was going to say about the smart messaging. Like, how's that evolved since the original sort of inbox from Dialect, and yeah, sort of where are you guys going to, or what's your
That's
thoughts?
right. That's what I was going to bring up just now. On your point about universal authentication, so we looked at crypto and Web3 and we said, what's kind of unique to this that's different in Web2? And there's a few points. You also brought up the spam problem in email, which, like, time permitting, we have some fun ideas there too. But the first thing with smart messaging was recognizing that, like, you're actually carrying a single user around with you everywhere you go through every product. And that is just such a huge UX improvement over Web2. It's like a small but really profound one. And it occurred to us what that means is that, let's say you're using like an NFT exchange and you've placed a bid on an NFT, and at some later time you get outbid. And that exchange wants to send you a notification. What's the experience you have in Web 2 is like you get an email or a text and it's like, oh, you've been outbid. And then they're like, there's a call to action. So like a ton of like how projects, businesses, dApps engage with their customers is with calls to action. So like the call to action experience in Web 2, like to date with like email and otherwise, is there's a link and you click the link and you like take that out to some site. But like most email, like mobile first email, like inbox clients take you to an embedded browser where you're like not signed in, and then you like can't take the action you want to. And you're like, whatever, like 6 hours from now when I'm back at home, I got to remember to do this thing. The fall off in attrition rate, like bad for the business and really annoying and tiresome for the consumer. In Web3, that inbox you're using, you authenticate with the same wallet as you used on the NFT exchange. That's why you're getting the notification to the wallet, like to the inbox. You have signing privileges there to execute actions like you do anywhere else. And so, in so many words, a smart message is like a link preview with a button. It's a rich rendering of a thing out in the world with an action you can take right from the message. So imagine the minimum bid is 0.1 sol, like that's the minimum bid increment. You could just have like a quick like bid up 1 point sol to like, let's say 16.7 sol. And it's right there in the message. You get the little signed transaction modal that pops up and you can hit approve and you're done. And that's just like completed right from the message. And so like coming back again to this like why Web3, smart messages are our first real pitch at why we think Web3 and Web3 native messaging can be better than Web 2 is just like being able to actually take action on all these calls to action. And like user to user too. Let's say I find a cool artist on like Exchange Art or Form Function. I send it to you, George. And like, what if that link preview of the artist has a follow button on it? You could like follow them and boom, you're done. Like you'll be able to start getting updates and notifications about them.
Yeah, I see that so commonly when sharing messages on Telegram or something, and it's like, oh, here's this cool thing, and then I click the link, and then it opens in Telegram's own like browser window, which they have or whatever, and it's not really a real browser.
That's
It's
right.
kind of, yeah, it's like a fake kind of browser, which kind of sucks, and like I can't see all of the content, or the content is some cached version which isn't fully accurate or something like that. It's just not a good experience for being able to share, you know, whatever information it might be, right? So having
That's
something
right.
where, yeah, I can just click it and I'm already signed in, I'm already completely vetted, and I can take some action, whether that's place a bid or just do something, I think is revolutionary in how people are doing things currently.
That's exactly right. And like, so to answer your question of like, what does that mean on our sort of trajectory, coming back all the way to when we first partnered with you all, the way we thought about the last, say, like most of 2021 for us was getting messaging integrated into everything. And so this was like, as a user is browsing around the Solana ecosystem, they either see a little notification bell in the nav bar of like an NFT exchange or a DeFi protocol, and they can opt in to receive notifications. Or they land on Step Finance and they go, oh, interesting, Dialect's here too. And now they're seeing those notifications arrive at Step Finance because you actually did a full inbox experience. Where we're going now with the smart message is the flip side. So we spent this time getting messaging into everything. Now we want to get everything into messaging. And the idea that you can actually take action and actually like execute and interact with protocols and projects and products and experiences out in Web3, that's this flip side. And so I've buried the lead a little bit, but I mentioned this in advance. We're entering this new inbox phase of Dialect, like mobile inbox phase, where our focus is now creating the best possible consumer grade experiences around sending and receiving Web3 native messages. And a big part of that is mobile. Messaging is obviously like a very powerful experience on mobile. So just last Thursday, what is today? Today is the 21st. So on like the 17th or the 16th, we launched Dialect, the mobile app. And this is live already today on iOS. And this is our sort of best foot forward reference implementation for what mobile first Web3 native, like consumer grade messaging experience can be. And we've already gotten like a really great response from the community. I mean, that's been really fun. But the neat thing is, it's like once you connect that wallet, like if it's the wallet you use on Step Finance, all the messages you had on Step Finance will now be in Dialect as well. They kind of like follow you around because you have this universal authentication layer. So you can like, as needed, where you are out in the ecosystem and what you're doing, you can send and receive messages, receive notifications, etc. So we're like over thrilled about it. And last thing I would say is like smart messages are going to be coming online there and in our web experiences very soon. So you can think of this like this is enabled in any environment that has integrated Dialect's protocol for messaging. And as part of our launch, this is one other kind of like interesting thing we've been exploring of like why Web3. So smart messages are like this very ambitious vision we have for like a new kind of protocol, etc. It's also fully interoperable. It's just as open as a link preview. It has nothing to do with actually using any of Dialect's products. Anybody can use the smart messaging protocol, and that's live and open source today. But that's on sort of like, I like to think of crypto as like sublime and ridiculous. On the sublime side, we've got like ambitious visions around future messaging and all that. And on the ridiculous side, with the launch of our Dialect app, I should have said this at the top of the call, we're doing NFT chat stickers. And so I don't know if you're like a heavy Telegram user where you use stickers in chat. They're like expressive, animated things. Like there's a community around collecting stickers. Do you use a lot of that stuff?
Yeah, in fact, actually, right now, literally in the Step Dialect chat, I'm going to send you a Step sticker, and we need
Let
to
me pull this up.
we need to make it exist on a blockchain or in the
Yes,
inbox
we
somewhere.
will 100% do that. So what we're doing is working with, I think, about 20 artists and PFP projects. We've publicly announced a few of them. We're still kind of haven't announced them yet, but having like a ton of fun around basically like instead of minting a PFP, like something you can use as your profile picture on Twitter or elsewhere, now what you mint are like packs of NFTs where each NFT is a sticker. And if you have it in your wallet, you can use it in chat. And it's like taking on a life of its own. And it's like so much fun. And so we've been doing some art reveals. We have one of our favorite pixel artists. His name is Marcolino. He's like really OG artist on one artist on Solana. And he did our Genesis pack, which are these pixel Pepes. They're like, the Pepe the Frog, but pixelated. And they are just like adorable beyond belief. So coming over the next month or so, we're going to be launching this tech in Dialect, but it'll be a part of our tooling in general. So like support for actually sending and receiving stickers will be a part of our just like general SDK. But yeah, having a ton of fun with this. The TLDR, and I like buried the hell out of this lead at the top of the call, is like where we are today with Dialect is over beyond excited to be launching this consumer mobile experience, the Dialect app, as this mobile first like Web3 messaging experience, fully interoperable with everything that we've launched in the past. And that's going to be one of the flagship places to receive and send smart messages.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know what, as you're talking about the mobile stuff there, like I'm connecting different threads because I think number one, Solana is going mobile as well, right? We've got the whole Saga phone and
Yes.
all that sort of stuff. And Anatoly and Raj have spoken about, hey, there's billions of people with phones in their pockets and they're like mobile internet computers all over the place. And yet people don't really do crypto stuff on them. So, and that's another kind of thing as well.
It is kind of amazing.
Yeah, and I think the way that people engage in crypto has been, at least for myself as well, is the phone is kind of, it's more of a, as you say, like it's a messaging kind of thing, right? It's where I go to look at my messages and reply to people. I'm
Yeah,
not trading like options and creating all of this other crazy
that's
stuff
right.
on my mobile. That's just not something that you do on mobile. And why? I think, like you have a limited screen space. There's only so much you can do. You don't want to overwhelm the user. You've only got like a touch screen, which sometimes can work imprecise, blah, blah, blah. So, but I think the way that mobile does well is when it's really easy to just click a button and then it does something. So I guess what you guys are getting at with the smart messaging and being able to like click a button and do something on mobile, that kind of fits in to a lot of not only what Solana's talking about, but also I guess just how people engage with mobile already. Like people are used to just clicking buttons
That's
and
absolutely
something
right.
happening on their mobile, right? They don't want to, like if I want to log into Magic Eden or something to bid on an NFT, it's quite hard on mobile. And, I might need several apps to do that, and up until recently at least. So, yeah, just having the ability to just go, oh, cool, yeah, my NFT is about to sold, or there's another bid, click a button, boom, and then now it's done. That's amazing.
That's absolutely right. And I love that framing. The way we think about it, something that was really impactful for me was when you're developing for iOS, Apple has all this documentation and guidelines around like human interface design. And they're obviously like one of the real leaders in that space. You often think about like for a given environment, being very disciplined about what is the actual best use of this kind of environment and this kind of interface. And so we say before anyone else that smart messages are not meant for every use case. And I would even say at the very least, like aping into just like thumbing into, you just like, you never know, like a lot of things that you do, whether it's like voting on a multi-sig, like go do your research and like find out what is this person actually asking you to do. And so in those scenarios, we want to make sure that smart messages operate the way link previews do, which is rich educational material on what am I looking at. Like link previews are a really profound improvement to the internet over like the last 10 years or 15 years. The internet is URLs, which is an amazingly social thing. Like here's this static, very densely encoded thing that allows me to go find and interact with basically the whole internet's content. And link previews give you that educational material. The goal in a more complex scenario is no, maybe this is not appropriate for taking an action. You should go actually to the full experience. But under those circumstances where there is an action I need to take, and maybe I need to take it quickly, and I understand what I'm doing, it is a huge problem, at least as I see it on the internet, that it's just like such a fumbly experience just trying to get to take that action. And so we're really excited about for the use cases that smart messages make sense, that we actually like are able to give the best possible user experience around that.
Yeah, and as you say, like, is it a case by case experience that you'll sort of look at the dApps which do make sense to integrate with, and maybe some complex financial apps, either A, they might not work for this, or B, there might be some certain actions within them that actually do. Like, I think we all agree that the
Exactly.
emergence of AMMs and swapping has been great for crypto, I think, over the last few years. The whole concept of, you have one coin and then you get another coin and you literally just put in the number of the coin that you want and then you press a button and now you have it. Like, that's amazing. Before, we had to go to Binance.com, log in, KYC 10 billion times, learn what a limit order was, all this sorts of stuff.
And usually limit is the default. So you got to like figure out and find the market thing. And then, yeah, totally. Like AMMs are a huge UX improvement.
Exactly. So I guess what you guys are looking at, like, I guess it's a case by case experience with each different protocol, right? Like, so you're looking at particularly, you mentioned the NFT use case, probably like auction houses and marketplaces are a natural fit there. Are there any other sort of things which you think would be a natural fit in the ecosystem currently for smart messaging?
Yeah, I think so. And usually, like, I think Aaron, Dana, and members of the STEP team know this about us. We love being hands-on and engaging with the teams, at the very least, because it's like user feedback. And so one of my favorite things about the last 9 months has been interacting with teams and finding out what they want to do. And like on a use case by case basis, obviously at the end of the day, it's the discretion of the developer and the project. Eventually, as we open this up, projects will be creating all kinds of smart messages. Some will be more intuitive than others. But early on, as we like engage and partner deeply with folks, some of our favorite use cases are actually pretty social. So like there's the getting a notification makes a lot of sense. So like an exchange is pinging me to say that I can accept the offer and sell on a buyout offer, or I can rebid. But some of the ones we really like are the ones that users can do. And so we're actually, as part of the smart message spec, I don't know if you're familiar with like how link previews work on the internet. You have like the head HTML body, like you got in HTML on any web page, you've got head and you've got body, and head has metadata around things that browsers can interpret. You can have like what is called open graph metadata tags that are like, if you want like a link preview to render, here's what the title would be, here's what the description would be, and then here's the image, like a URL to an image. And what we're really excited about is actually a way for users to, like developers, to actually put a new kind of like smart message meta tag in the head of the HTML. So what would happen there is, as a user, I could just send you a link to Mint. Like, oh, I heard that Mint's happening today. Can you remind me where it is? And you send me a link. And the mint button's right there if I'm whitelisted. And those kinds of like social use cases where it just makes sense. Like, I know I want to participate in this mint. I trust the URL, and trust and security is this whole other very interesting part of this problem space. But those are the cases we really like, are a little more social. Also looking at gaming, gaming's got some really fun use cases. Gaming is all time and retention and sort of like engagement based.
Very cool, very cool. So just quickly on that point, like does the gaming, does that fit into what you're currently building? Or I think before you mentioned like potentially another L1 sort of, maybe some sort of roll up, some sort of side thing that is where a lot of data resides. Like, is that the case for gaming? Because I know a lot of gaming companies, like you had Axie that really brought sort of crypto gaming to the fore maybe last year, and they had to build their own blockchain just to make their game work. And you don't want to have to do that, right?
That's right.
That sucks. And then now we've got Solana coming along, and a lot of gaming companies, I think, are looking to use the Solana blockchain in different ways. But I think the deeper that you look to integrate, it might affect the way that you build your game, and maybe that's something you don't want to do. But is that something that maybe you see in that vertical? Would it fit into what you guys are currently building, or are there other stuff on the horizon, maybe 2023? Anything that you guys are thinking where the direction might be to sort of fit into that sort of gaming scenario?
Yeah, actually, so on this question of like, if I'm understanding like where is the infrastructure, how is data being stored and all that, our attitude at Dialect, actually, there's Rooter from Solend was on the Phantom podcast, I think sometime over the summer or the spring. And he said something that really, I think I'm attributing this correctly. I'll fact check afterward. Something that really stuck with us as a team, which is build something worth decentralizing. And so our attitude here is take a game or take messaging. So much of what's going to work or not work is not so much like what it's built with, but what it does for the user. And even in Web2, there's just like so many sort of like variables you can't control for, of like finding out what users actually want. And so for us, like if we were building a gaming company, what we would probably focus on is say what aspects of the game are uniquely Web3, and really kind of like focus on making those genuinely Web3. So that might be like in-game assets are actually NFTs, so that users genuinely own them, and it really is like ownership based. But other kinds of data that helps make the game run, and like, timekeeping or any other interactions don't necessarily need to be. It's like, I want to duel with you and I get your NFT. It's like maybe only the NFT of all those data structures today needs to be on chain. Because I think a ton of time can be spent trying to decentralize more and more on a product experience that, like, even if it's perfect, like it's absolutely performant and low cost and all that, users still don't want to use it. Same applies for messaging, where what we're doing more than ever these days is saying, how can we make unique experiences that users are just going to want to use? And then, as coming back to maybe, if I'm answering your question correctly, this question of like, does 2023, what does that hold in the cards for like really interesting new infrastructure tech? We're like a very engineering heavy team. My background is heavy on science and engineering. And so I like love to geek out on new data L1s and whatnot. There's some really cool tech coming online. And absolutely, as we like sort of start to figure out exactly what users want and what's creating the best experience, we'll be moving more and more of that tech. Okay, actually, one quick aside on that. For these sticker packs, they're going to be more abundant than your average PFP project. So like you might see like a 5,000 to 15,000 mint PFP project. The way that we're doing stickers is they can be as abundant or as scarce as you want. And so with our Genesis pack, every user there's a finite supply of those packs, but every user who gets one of those packs gets sort of like the same, let's say 5 to 15 NFT stickers. And so that's already like a much larger volume thing. They're not all unique. Some are rare, some are common. It's just like part of like making a fun experience. The way that we're going to do that at scale, because some users will download Dialect for the first time and they will just be creating a new wallet for the first time and they've never actually put any funds in there. And as you know, there's a lot of iOS restrictions around buying, selling, any sales, NFT sales, all of that. So we're actually using Solana and Metaplex's new compressed NFT tech to build these sticker packs. So not only are transactions are already vanishingly small on Solana, like basically subsidizable, but when you're using compressed NFTs, this is now tech where, like, genuinely speaking, like the way that Telegram subsidizes its data stores, like Dialect or other parties could subsidize and really provide very large scale mints to its users. So it's not exactly, again, sort of like I'm answering like 4 questions. I think you asked like one. But on the cool sort of like new data stores, it's actually right on Solana, but like really interesting compressed NFTs we're incredibly excited about. As I understand it, I think Helium and some other major projects are going to be adopting this compressed NFT standard in the near future. So that's going to be coming online very early in the new year.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think data for NFTs is certainly an area which needs some improvement on Solana. I think when we first started and there was no Metaplex and then some people had an IPFS and then I think there was Arweave and then just all over the place and people can change it and it was just it's and still kind of is a little bit of a mess. So yeah, so
I think there's still a lot of work that needs to be done for sure.
Yeah, just on,
That's right.
agreeing on standards to be able to distribute that data across a blockchain or something like that. So super cool. I guess just wrapping up as well, what are you excited for, not Dialect related stuff, but what are you excited for maybe from the rest of the ecosystem, Solana in general, that might be coming next year? Is there anything that you're hyped about or yeah?
Yeah, a very long list. I'll start with a mini show on Dialect. We are actually incredibly excited about Saga. And one reason why Saga was actually like the Solana mobile phone. I'm not sure I said this earlier, but that was the turning point for us deciding to actually build a mobile app was Saga. We want to like support the Solana team. We love the like vision, the like dent in the universe that like Toli and Raj are trying to do by like shifting the conversation on what mobile crypto can be. We are actually the first native mobile app, not a website, but actual native mobile app to build and deploy to Saga after Phantom and SolanaFloor. So we actually like, I think 15 minutes before recording this podcast officially submitted to the pilot dApp Store program that Saga has. So insanely excited about Saga. That's my last show on Dialect. Other projects we're really excited about. I mentioned earlier in this call, Helios is like amazing, incredibly cool tech in terms of building really performant consumer applications that use and interact with blockchain data. That's just like an amazing project. Mert is a gigabrain. Very impressed with what he's doing. Just love the pioneering work that's being done in wallets, in the wallet space. So like we're very close with SolanaFloor and Phantom teams. We're just like very impressed with just the very high polished consumer experiences they've made. I would add Glow to that list, like absolutely. And then even more cutting and bleeding edge in the wallet space, like Backpack is just like this absolutely like mind twisting idea. Like the XNFTs Backpack, like being able to actually like have developers ship applications to a wallet is just like absolutely crazy. So extremely excited about what they're doing. God, what else? I mean, we love what's happening in the NFT space. Obviously, like there's really incredible projects like Cardinal building these new primitives. They told us about this really neat idea that's like a new idea. Like I don't know if it's public, so maybe I won't say anything, but it's a concept closely related to NFT rentals that we may end up using in some ways around how we do stickers. So Cardinal's been doing incredible stuff. Magic Eden, Hyperspace, Exchange Art Form Function. Like it's just neat. Like I feel like culturally, so there's like tech and then there's culture. Culturally, I feel like the NFT exchanges are like on the bleeding edge on Solana. Like there's a new narrative here. And obviously like with its ups and downs with all the royalty questions and whatnot. And then on the like multi-sig side, social and security, I actually think like Squads is this like wolf in sheep's clothing is not the right, like they're just shipping incredible stuff. And this new Fuse wallet, like we think all the time about what is like a social crypto experience. So we think Squads is doing cool stuff. Like Jito is doing really neat stuff on the MAV side. I don't know. This is like a really random list of things going on, but on the view into my finances, I love the work that you all have been doing around leaning more into NFTs. And what's the name of the project again? Beyond Step, you have a...
Yeah, we acquired SolanaFloor, so a lot of that data is going to be coming across to Step pretty soon.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm really excited, like just being able to take more of an aggregate view. That's right. Yeah.
Absolutely. Like that's an amazing list. And actually some of the things there are things that I'm also hyped about, but then I can't remember a list in my head that in depth. But I think the Jito stuff
this is random. I'm sure I left some great friends of ours out, but yeah, like those are just a couple of the things that are on our minds.
Absolutely. And I think as well, the MEV stuff and running a new sort of node client as well, and maybe projects themselves running their own validators, I think is a cool sort of trend to emerge recently. So I'm super excited to that. Hey, what's not to love? Like you increase decentralization, you engage with your community, you stake Sol, you're just delegating your Sol so nobody can run away with the money.
Agreed.
So stuff like that I think is great.
You reminded me of one more. Fired answer is like coming back to the very beginning of the conversation, like post FTX, why should you be optimistic about Solana? Just look around. The innovative tech is like every single vertical. There is just incredible talent and incredible innovation. And so as like arbitrage, if you know what's going on in Solana, you can see this incredible talent that has stayed and is doing like very high conviction bets on building the future of crypto. There's just this like big mismatch between that and like I know just generally all crypto prices are down right now, but I would say specific to Solana, there's just like an incredible opportunity to build amazing stuff.
Well, that's a great point to leave it on, Chris. Where can people reach out to you? Where can they find Dialect? What's the best place? Do you have a Discord community? Time to shill. Well, where can we find you?
So show point one, go to our website, dialect.to. It's not IO, it's TO, like to and from, messaging, very clever. It turns out that's a hard one to remember. Dialect.to, you can get the Dialect app today. There's an in-app waitlist, and we have kind of a fun experience around earning sticker packs in there. There is a developers portal. If you're a developer and you're interested in building smart messages with us, I didn't say this at all during the previous conversation, but if you go to the developers portal, there's a link on our site. We actually have a $100,000 grant program for early young developers, like building new experiences around smart messages. 100%. If that's something that anyone's interested in, check that out. Plus links to our documentation. If you want to find us on Twitter, we're at Say Dialect, like Say SAY, and then Dialect. And then I think our Discord is like discord.gg/dialect.
Yeah, and I think the Discord is linked in the Twitter anyway. So just go to the Twitter.
That's right. You basically go to our Twitter. You'll find everything else from our Twitter. Cool.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Chris. Look, it's been a pleasure. Everyone, go and check out Dialect. They're doing amazing stuff. They always have a real sort of focus on building cool stuff. And also, I think something that we've noticed is you guys have always been super quick to turn around with anything. Like, I know there's been like many late night conversations of people fixing stuff and doing stuff. And I think you guys are probably the same as us, where it's like, it's a 24/7 kind of thing. And whatever time of day, like, if we're online, then we're online and we're doing stuff. So no, that's great to see. And so yeah, everyone go and check out Dialect.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
I was going to say having a customer that cares is the best thing, and you all have been great. So
thank you so much. That's great to hear. But thanks so much for being on today, and we'll chat again soon. And yeah, everyone go and check out the links. But it's been a pleasure having you on today, Chris, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks so much, George. It's our pleasure. Take care.
Awesome.